Well, I want to thank you, Suzanne, for putting up that program and keep inviting me back to give a talk, which is a great and fun opportunity for me to share what is close to my heart, and that are relationships. And as we all know, they can turn out into a beast. They can really challenge us. I'm always interested in finding ways. What can we do to make it easier for us and for our partners, and in the end, for our relationships? Because I treat them like a third entity. I'm going to jump in right away. I came across this quote in my quote collection. I have a huge collection of quotes, and I felt like, oh, that's a good one for tonight. So I will leave it up, and maybe at some point you will also understand why I have chosen this picture as a background for the quote. So, do what you did in the beginning of a relationship and there won't be an end, by Anthony Robbins. It sounds really great, it sounds easy and good, doesn't it? And you know, when we are in the first phase, in our honeymoon or infatuation phase, it's really easy to do all that. We are naturally at our best. We are attentive, we are attracted to each other, we can't wait to see each other, we are good communicators, even if we are not that great in our normal life. But in that phase, we are just at our best. And it is because we are supported, and just to simplify it, I call it a cocktail of hormones that are flushing through our bodies and have an incredible altering effect on our brains. They really change our brain chemistry. So we are constantly on sort of a high, and that's why it's so easy to be at our best, attentive, and attracted to each other. I want to ask if it's okay if I do a little exercise with you, where I will invite you to go back in time, remember a specific person that you fell deeply in love with, and I will guide you through it, but the purpose of it is to find out what did you do in the beginning of that specific relationship. It can be with a partner that you're still with, or it can be somebody that it turned out not to be a long-lasting relationship. Are you up for it? Okay. You can either close your eyes or keep them open, whatever is more comfortable for you. And just take a moment to think about a specific person that you remember you fell deeply in love with. How did you meet? Just try to remember. Try to remember how long ago it was. Remember the feelings you had. Maybe it was those butterflies, little nervousness. Just try to remember how it was when you fell in love with that person. Next, I want to invite you to remember what you did together. I also want to invite you to remember how you expressed your love and your interest for that person. Were you somebody who wrote nice text messages, or maybe you brought little gifts along? Or maybe you did completely different things. Just try to remember, what was it that you personally did to express your love and to express your interest for that person. Try also to remember what the other person did to express his love or her love and interest to you. How did that person do that? And then prepare yourself to come back in time, into now, into this space. Are you up to share a little bit with your neighbor? Or do you want to just, because I would love to just protocol, what you did, what kind of actions you did, or little gestures, or just to get a sense of what we do in that moment. Are you open to share with your neighbor? I would not do it for long, just each a minute or so. Or maybe with them. You want to share with them? Ready to hear what others did? It's always interesting to hear what other people did. And if the list is not full, I can add some of my own. I can even start. I was always beaming at that person. I was just so happy to see that person. That was my way. What else? What else did you do? What comes to you?
Speaking of deep truth.
You were speaking a deep truth. Okay, so you were speaking from your heart. Okay, and you usually don't do that so easily. But that was something that you remember specifically. Thank you for sharing. What else? Yeah. You were laughing easily. Yeah. So she just said that she was laughing about things that were inappropriate even. So it was just this giggly mood. Yeah.
Laughing constantly.
Yeah, laughing constantly. Mm-hmm. What else? Yes.
Dancing.
You were dancing a lot. Yeah.
I practiced a special song and sang it to him.
Wow, you even practiced a special song and sang it to him. On the guitar. Wow. That is wonderful. Yeah?
I was
Kathy?
nervous most of the time.
You were nervous. Did you do something special to express your interest and your love?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, we go and we do things we had in common, like hear music.
So you went to music, to concerts and festivals. Yeah, you did a lot of fun stuff, I guess, huh? Yeah. Yeah. You
Camping a lot. Went camping.
You went camping. You went outdoors.
Got away.
Right out into nature together. How fun. What else did you do?
We biked a lot together.
You bicycled a lot. Mhm. I remember at some point I left little love notes and I hid them. And I was so curious, when will he find them? Will he find them all? He didn't find them all. So I had to help, I had to notch him at some point.
I met his children as soon as I could.
You wanted to meet, yeah, you wanted to see who they are. Yeah. Other things? Yeah.
I put off meeting his children. Really. Because it was about us getting to know each other.
Yeah, you wanted to get to know this guy.
Absolutely.
You didn't want to share him with his children.
I didn't want to involve the children in case we didn't work out.
Yeah, okay, that's a good point. You were wise. Yeah.
And we stared into each other's eyes a lot.
Oh, yeah, staring into each other's eyes, that's a good one. What else? You made his favorite dishes? You cooked his favorite dishes? Lucky guy. Oh, and it was even mutual. How sweet is that? Yeah.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I wash your car all the time.
Wow, you washed her car. She had the most shiny car in town.
So we lived on a dirt road, so
Oh. So you had to wash it often.
or blow it off with the leaf blower. You know?
Oh. Oh. So those sweet little acts of services, huh? Oh. I think it's just such a sweet phase that we could get really addicted to. And some people even do that, you know, they fell in love. When that special feeling is gone, they stop, find somebody else, which in a way is understandable. It's maybe not very sustainable, but on the relationship level, to build a long-lasting relationship. But I can understand that somebody gets really addicted to that phase. Thank you, Suzanne. So when we look at that, it's just, this list just warms my heart. And maybe you remember even more when you're on your drive home. I think it's a good thing to remember what we did in the beginning of our relationship. It's also a way to really spark that appreciation for each other again. And you know, sometimes we have to tweak it. We can't do it one-on-one. Sometimes we have to find new things. But it's definitely a creative and fun way if you look to infuse your relationship with positivity. As I said, it's this hormone cocktail that boosts. It's like a love-boosting cocktail. So we are just really supported by our bodies to feel how we feel, to do all these things naturally. They are a no-brainer to do in that phase. At some point, those hormones, they go back to normal production, and we go back to our normal selves, our usual selves. And in this phase, we also often have the need to differentiate and be different again. Because in that first phase, we usually just want to be together as much as possible. And then we want to feel again how life feels without that person, how we are when we are just by ourselves. It doesn't mean that we are not open or don't want to see that person anymore, but we also have to feel how we are doing without that person. And depending very much also on what we have experienced as children in our relationship with our main caregivers, what kind of role model we had, how we learned to attach to a significant other, and especially also what relationship skills we were able to acquire so far. This phase can be a very, very challenging time, a painful and challenging time for a couple, and that's why it's also called power struggle phase. When we are stuck in I'm right and you're wrong, when we are expressing mainly our frustration with each other, it becomes really, really difficult. And yet just be aware that this can happen. This is sort of normal. On the other hand, this phase, I like it, I'm glad we have it built in naturally, is also a time where we can really find out how compatible we are, how we can work things out, how many common values we actually share. And depending on how that phase goes, we might decide to end it, and it might be a good thing to end it at that point. What I found talking about relationship skills, I can talk about many different ones because there are many different ones, but the one that I personally, and also in my work, through my work, have found as one of the most important one is having compassion. And compassion, to me, has two folds. One is having compassion for myself, and also compassion for the other, in this case, my partner. I define having self-compassion like this. We are in touch with our needs, we are in touch with our thoughts, we are in touch with our feelings, and we don't have to judge them or ourselves for having them. So when we want to practice compassion, it's really important that we learn to stay away from judgment, or we recognize how detrimental judgment is for learning to have compassion. So, like, we really have to appreciate and learn to love ourselves with our good qualities, with our defaults, and we fail. And we don't have to be hard, come down hard on us and judge us and feel like, oh, I'm such a loser, I just can't do anything. We have to have compassion for us, for ourselves in those moments. And I make a clear distinction between having self-compassion and having pity for ourselves. Pity is, we are in a place of victimhood, poor me, and this has nothing to do with self-compassion. Self-compassion comes with taking responsibility for our well-being and for our happiness. We are asked to have an understanding or learn to have an understanding for the situations we are in. So when we do the same for our partners, when we have to practice having compassion for our partners, it's again very, very crucial that we can stay away from judgment, that we don't have to criticize them, him or her, judge him or her, that we can just be curious and open, that we replace judgment with openness and curiosity. But you know, it's a skill that we have to practice, and sometimes we don't have it available. And we stay frustrated and upset with each other, and we yell and we scream, we have arguments, and it just doesn't go anywhere. Other than when we're doing that too long, we will eventually kill our relationship, and we will hurt each other tremendously. And if we want to move forward, move out of this power struggle phase, that can take a lot of energy and sometimes even outside help, depending on how long we've been stuck in this phase. So the goal of this phase, in my eyes, is to find out whether we are compatible or not, and also to learn to accept each other for who we truly are. And that will come with compassion. There is some bad news, and that's what I said. A lot of people are really stuck in that, and they are stuck in that too long, and so their relationship can't make it. But the good news is that we can learn compassion and the relationship skills that come along with it. We can learn that at any age. That is not limited to a certain time in our lives. So, and even if we know quite a bit, and I would say I'm pretty darn good on the level of relationship skills, but believe me, I am not done with learning. I'm still fine-tuning them, and you know, it's also different with every person. There is something else needed from me to keep in touch, to keep connected or work things out. So one way, like when we are upset, I really recommend that we go inside ourselves instead of yelling at our partner. Take a moment, go inside of ourselves and find out, what is it that I need? What would have helped me? And again, it sounds simple, and it can, sometimes it's not that simple, but it's definitely worth practicing. So, that's the power struggle phase. What comes next? And I have a hard time to put a label on it. There are therapists, they say it's the pure bliss phase or whatever. I'm just not a pure bliss gal, I guess. I think I'm too pragmatic. I might also know too much about relationships. I feel like what comes next is definitely when a couple can make it beyond the power struggle phase. They for sure have learned not to pour oil in the flame of an argument anymore. They for sure have learned to calm themselves down and each other. They have learned to accept each other for who they are, including their differences. They might have even learned to use their differences for the benefit of their relationship. And they have learned to reconnect when the connection is broken. And they know how to turn towards each other instead of away from each other, which happens so often when we are in an argument, when we are in a disagreement, we turn away. That's okay, it can happen, but just remember, turn back. And remember that your partner is not your enemy. He or she is your best friend. And we can so easily forget that. So I would say, we can even go back to the honeymoon phase at some point. I remember I fell in love with my husband multiple times. And maybe we also have another strike of power struggle phase. I believe that we just, it's a process. And we go back and forth, and sometimes it is easy, and sometimes the relationship is more a challenge. But once we made it through a power struggle phase, we have the experience that we can work things out. We have the experience that, yes, it's normal. A relationship, my partner, you will take me out of my comfort zones. It's just a given. We don't even have to think about that anymore. So there is another aspect that I would like to share with you, and it's knowledge that I came across quite a number of years ago from neuroscience that I just found fascinating. And some of you may already know that that our brains have a negativity bias, and for others it might be new. We do have a negativity bias built in, not in the infatuation phase, because our brain is sort of drugged and our critical thinking is not at its best. But normally we have this built-in negativity bias, and I think it's part for our survival, which means we remember negative, threatening, unpleasant moments or interactions by far better than kind and pleasant ones. And to illustrate that, I brought my Teflon pan. So when it comes down to positive, nice, and kind interactions, our brains are built like Teflon. They just slip off. We just can't remember it. It's just as if our brains would be made out of Teflon. But on the other hand, the negative ones, and I put my mic down. Like Velcro. They just stick. They stick in our memory. We will not forget them so easily. So what does that mean for our relationships? There is a guy, not a guy, he's actually a really famous couples therapist, and his name is John M. Gottman, and he speaks about a ratio of 1 to 5, which means when we have one negative interaction, we have to counterbalance that with 5 positive interactions. And I used to say like, oh, yeah, I don't know if this number is right. But the more I learn about neuroscience and our brains, I think he might be darn right, actually. So that is not in our favor. is not in the favor of our relationships. What I also learned, and I learned that from another therapist, and his name is Rick Hansen, is that it will take our brain about 5 to 10 seconds to remember a positive, kind interaction. So that means that we need to learn to really take it in. And it's like a sunset. Like when you see a beautiful sunset, you stop your car, you hop out of it, you sit down and you watch it. And you are really excited about it, you take it fully in all these colors, and you don't run away, you just sit there and look. And in a way, you have to treat your partner's positive interactions like taking the beauty in of a sunset. Take the beauty of that positive interaction in. And I wanted to say something else, and it just skipped my mind for a moment. I will remember it. Oh yeah, I know it now. What I wanted to say is that cultivating positivity in our relationship has 3 different aspects. One is to create them ourselves and be really generous with them. Remember the 1-to-5 ratio? Be generous with your positive interactions, with acknowledging your partner or doing kind things for them. And the second is be on the lookout for positive interactions of your partner. We are so good at seeing the negative. Just change that. Put like a pair of glasses on that wants to see the positive interactions of your partner. And once you detect it, once you see one, let it in. Like a beautiful sunset, or like we woke up this morning to an incredible landscape, a magical landscape of snow, and the sun was coming through. Boy, was that nice. Treat positive interactions of your partners exactly like a morning like today, or a sunset. And there are people, for them, it comes easy. They can do that more easily than others. But again, it's just a matter of practicing, and we can actually practice right now. I invite you to look at my quote on that picture, and just give it 5 to 10 seconds to look at it and take it in. And maybe you're even thinking about positive things that you did in the beginning of your relationship. Yeah, we went longer than 5 to 10 seconds, and I think we only benefit when we take more time, when we really make the space to intentionally create positivity in our relationships, but also intentionally allowing it in. And that's it. So, and if you have any questions, this is a really good moment to ask questions. Yes?
What's the difference between a sunset and naivety?
How would you answer me that question?
Well, a lot of times, from my own experience, I have fallen in love with the idea of a person and overlook their negatives. So, in order to fall in love with someone and just take in their good, I guess maybe that's kind of the question.
Well, remember the power struggle phase? In the power struggle phase, that's the time where we can really check the other person out and check out, or how can we work things out? Do we really have enough in common? Because in that phase, you will be able to see more clearly who that person is. And that's why I personally like the power struggle phase, although I don't like power struggles. But I think the phase itself is a is a very, very valuable time. I would also say, you know, don't make any major decisions in the infatuation phase, like having a baby or buying a house together or whatever, you know. This is not the time for major decisions. The time for major decisions is probably better once you have at least experienced one cycle of power struggle. That would be my recommendation, but I'm an old fart, so I know how it is when you're in love, and you know it can happen. But this is my personal perspective, and I would not. I don't want to judge anybody. I have compassion for people who get pregnant in the infatuation phase. So please understand me correctly. I just would say, be aware that this can happen to you, and it might not be the best decision. On the other hand, maybe we would not be here, you know? Maybe one of us would not be here if the parents would have come to this talk and take me really seriously.
I can talk loudly, I don't think I need that, but see, what I see is that you're working towards the ideal relationship, where there's, you know, you go through the power struggle and you have a balanced relationship and you openly work on things, but yet many of the longest lasting relationships I've seen are not balanced relationships. Often one or the other is dominant and the other is submissive, and they've accepted that. Now, I don't feel like that's healthy. I'm really uncomfortable with that kind of relationship. But I've seen it. My grandparents were one and my brother was another, where they were very unbalanced, but they just accepted it and went on.
But you know, this is what I mean with acceptance. Who are we to say what's good and what's bad for somebody else? You can only see what works for you and what will not work for you. And that's what I mean with having compassion. That we can really accept whatever is, who we are, how we like things to be. We will also have to learn to stand up for ourselves, and that might be challenging in itself and scary.
Well, and it often challenges the relationship.
Sure.
Especially in a male-dominated paradigm, which we've all grown up in.
Yeah.
You know, it's changing. We're working on it.
Yeah.
But still, you know, at least half the population believes the male is supposed to be dominant.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I say we can only take responsibility for ourselves and our relationships. That's all we can do. And I mean, I'm not going out on the roads and say, hey, you have to see me, I have to fix your relationship. That's not who I am, you know. If somebody wants to learn to live with differences differently, or if they want to work on a dynamic that is really hard for them, then I'm available. But I don't have the answers all the time. I just go with them. I find out what comes up.
Doesn't it also depend on what, if any, goals you have for that third entity that you talked about? For itself, what do you want from a relationship? Where do you want to go? What do you want from it?
That's a very good point.
And how that you work that out with your partner. You know.
That's a very good point, because, you know, like if we have a relationship, like my relationship when I was 20 differed from my relationship when I was 30. And it's another, my husband died and now it's another ball game again, you know? It's like, I'm not interested in finding somebody who wants to have kids with me. So it's that simple. But it's true, you know, it depends on what we want from this relationship, and also what is possible in this relationship. I would even say that in the infatuation phase, we might even get a glimpse of the potential of that relationship, but it might be an illusion. But we might get a glimpse of the potential. I personally like to look at it like that. Did I say that cultivating or practicing compassion, that sometimes it's easier to have that just for ourselves, and then later we learn to expand to have compassion for our partner? I didn't say that, but it's an important part. And also, I think true compassion means we can have compassion for ourselves and compassion for the other. I can't do it at the exact same moment. I still have first compassion for myself, and then I can turn to my partner and see and develop compassion there, be interested in finding out. And it's really true, there is people, they just can easily develop it for themselves and then for the other, and it doesn't matter. I think it's too much asked to have compassion at the exact same moment for both. I think it's impossible. We can't multitask anyway. It's one thing after the other. But it's like the time between that might get shorter. You know, maybe in the beginning it takes us a day or a week to have compassion for the need of our partner, and if we're getting better at it, maybe it's a matter of 5 to 10 minutes.
What do you suggest to folks who get stuck in the power struggle phase?
First, acknowledge that you're stuck in the power struggle phase, and then see whether you can get out of it on your own. And if not, I would suggest go and see a professional. Because it's really hard to get out on your own when you're deeply stuck there.
So the possibility arises that in a relationship, because it is an intimate arrangement with two individuals, that not only are we bring ourselves to it, but then I also bring all my triggers, all the things that I hated about my childhood or loved about my childhood or was done, previous relationships, schoolyard fights, I mean the whole 9 yards come. The other person brings them too. And if we're not cognizant about those triggers, we don't have anything to stand on when that power struggle has, because we're just reactive.
Yeah.
So we really have to work on ourselves, don't we?
I think so. And it's fun, you know. I find it fun. I find it's exciting to understand myself better. To learn, oh my gosh, oh, that's me too. You know, I find it, I personally, and this is again, it's me. I personally find it fascinating to learn about what triggers me, and maybe I can find out why. But sometimes it's not even necessarily to know. If I know how to be with that trigger and not get consumed by it, just notice, oh, ooh, that triggered me big time. And then look for how could I have reacted to that? It comes down to an openness and a curiosity in the end. I think I can't emphasize that. How important openness and curiosity is, not just for life itself, but also in relationships. Yeah, and it can be scary, it can be challenging, and yet I have to say it's my favorite way of growing. I wouldn't miss it. I wouldn't want to miss it.
Kevin, just sort of comment or anything that you have to explore this, it just occurs to me, like, you know, that what next phase kind of, it's like, you know, like no relationship is going to be everything that you want it to be, but it's like that kind of dichotomy with, it's clearly got some of what you need and some of what you want, and, you know, trying to reconcile those, I guess part of that is, you know, that compassion thing that you have to have for yourself and the other, but it's, you know, it's, anyway.
Yeah, and also remember what is really good. what is good in your relationship, and be appreciative of it, and express that. Because as you said, you know, there is no such thing as a partner that can fulfill all our needs. But there might be somebody who's willing to at least listen or try and do his best, or say, you know what, I'm sorry, but I can't do that. At least then we know, okay, yeah, maybe I can get it someplace else met. It doesn't mean I have to go out and have an affair. That's not what I'm talking about. But there are so many people who can help us out when we are with a specific need.
I mean, there's the problem-solving phase where, you know, you can be creative and come up with ideas of how to solve those issues. But, you know, I guess the power struggle phase is when you're caught in all your baggage. Both parties are, you know, it's just you have this emotional thing that you need to, like, you know, express. And so you can't, it's not even about, you know, resolving anything. It's kind of more about, like, just seeing it or, you know, acting it out.
Yeah, that's a good point. You know, another really important relationship skill is not to take things so darn personally. You know, to realize, oh, maybe this has nothing to do with me. And maybe at some point we can even say, you know what, this has nothing to do with you, but I'm so pissed right now. And I can't help it. And I need to express it. So please, get an umbrella or whatever and protect yourself. I have given that advice to people who come and see me. You know, don't take it on. You don't need to put yourself in this bubble, in this protection bubble. Maybe it's really enough that you don't leave, that you are present even if your partner vents. And if it's not, if you can't, walk away, go on a walk. Go out in nature, do something that calms you down. Because I really know that when we are in a triggered state, we can't find any solutions. We can't even listen to each other. Forget about compassion for the other. Forget about it. So I always say, stop the argument. Don't let it go longer. There are people, they say, don't let an argument, a tough argument, go longer than 20 minutes. Otherwise, it's gonna go into the part of your brain where it will start to influence how you look at this relationship, what you make out of that relationship. So, yeah. Thank you for asking.
You can always make an agreement to discuss it later when you're not freaking out. When you're not freaking out.
Yeah, when your brain is calmer and you have access to your prefrontal cortex again, and you can see the bigger picture and you can think again and you can analyze. That's a very good point. Yeah. Suzanne.
Doris, you said in the power struggle phase you have to decide whether or not you're compatible enough, and sometimes you make the decision that you're not. Could you say more about that and what that looks like?
You know, that's a very personal decision. Like, I'm a person who doesn't give up so easily, so I might stay longer than somebody else. And there are people, they say, screw this, you know, and they walk away. So it's very, very personal. What I would not recommend is staying in a relationship without getting help, and even that is no guarantee. But don't stay too long in a relationship that is so hard, because it can really affect your health. and it might even affect your outlook on relationships in general. So I think we are good. Thank you for all the questions you asked. And thank you so much for coming out, despite the fact that the roads are icy, and some of you guys have to go over the ridge. I really appreciate your coming. Thank you.